Swimming like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Welcome back to another episode of the Shrimp Tank. We come to you virtually from Seattle and the great PNW, what we lovingly call the Pacific Northwest. Listen, if you want to learn how to start, grow, or run a successful business, this right here, it's the podcast for you. We call it the podcast of records. It's where street smarts and book smarts collide, and they collide in a good way. Hello again, everyone. I'm Dan Whedon, and my guest co-host today is Brad Berger. You're going to love hearing Brad back on the show. We have a second-time guest. It's Nic Lind. Nic is the owner and designated broker at Commencement Bay Brokers, which is a 5-member real estate team that services both residential home buyers and sellers in Tacoma and Pierce County. Commencement Bay Brokers is a boutique firm providing world-class services. Nic has been in real estate since 2008 and has built one of the leading sales teams in the entire Puget Sound region. Nic, welcome back to the show. We'll be with you in just a minute. Everyone, you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and YouTube. I like to tell everybody we are ubiquitous. Now, we come to you from about a dozen cities, including the mothership in Atlanta. We're in Boca Raton. We're in Boston. We're in Knoxville. We're in Columbus. We got a whole bunch of different places. We like us best, but don't tell anybody else that. Now, listen, before we bring on Nic, I haven't said this in quite a while. Hello, Brad.
Hello, Dan. How are you doing?
I am doing great. I'm ecstatic, Brad. Nic, you're going to have to put up with this little love fest in the beginning. We got the bromance back. I'm excited to have Brad Berger, my former co-host, back. Brad is a fantastic sponsor at Ideal Life 360, and Brad said he could come back. We had an opening for a co-host, and he's coming back this week. And so, Brad, just like magic, you're back.
Would not have missed it for the world, Dan. So thank you for having me.
Now, listen, we're going to talk a little bit more about Ideal Life 360 at the first commercial break, but I want to get right into our banter. It's one of the favorite things that you and I did, and so I want to ask. Speaking of magic, I'm a big magic fan. I can't do magic, but I love magic. When I go to Vegas or to someplace, I always go catch a magic show because I know there's tricks to it, but I'm just always like a kid amazed. You might be too. And so I wanted to ask Brad, it's kind of like a plead the fifth. If there was a magic trick that you can't do now, maybe you do other magic, I don't know, but if there's a magic trick that you can't do now that you wished you could, like, poof, I can do this magic, what would it be?
I'd like to be able to make certain people disappear.
Not everybody, just certain people.
Not everybody, just certain people. So that's the magic of it, right? When I wanted, to whom I wanted.
All right. Well, you didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you what mine is. I'm going to tell you what mine is, and this sounds silly, but it is the proverbial, the mythical. If I could pull a rabbit literally out of a hat, if I could show you the top hat and do the whole trick with the wand and there's no rabbit in here, and literally pull a rabbit out by the ears, I think that would be amazing. Have you ever seen?
There's no doubt, but I'm not sure what you would do with all those rabbits. They do multiply.
Well, they do multiply. Yes. Maybe I have to give them to other magicians. Well, listen, talking about magicians and magic, our guest, Nic Lind, who was on the show. Oh my gosh, Brad, I think it goes back to he was one of our first ones. I think it was in 2017 is when Nic was on the show. He's back. Yeah, he's back again. Nic, you make magic in a different way. You're not pulling rabbits out of hats, but you and your team are making magic for real estate buyers, people who are buying their dream homes, their first homes, the homes that they're buying because they're having kids and they need to expand. They're buying investment properties. You're making a lot of magic at Commencement Bay. First of all, welcome back. Second of all, tell us how that magic is being made.
Well, I appreciate being here again. It's like old home week, and nice to see you again, Brad. It's been far too long, and my goodness, I think we lost 3 years of, like, I can't remember if it was 2017 or 2018 or
Right.
2019. Like, life got really short real fast. I am so grateful for the opportunity to be joining you guys again. I have a little more depth. I have a little more wisdom. We've seen a crazy sales cycle. So, I think the magic that we get to see with our clients, it stems, it goes in a few different channels, but like the biggest, greatest thing that we get to do with our clients is help them typically change their financial future by buying a home. And, I didn't get into this to, profess to teach people how to make money with real estate. That's not what we do. But I do understand the levers that real estate, and in particular, owning a primary home in an appreciating market, I understand what that does for a family now, and I can illustrate it. And it is magic. We have clients who chose to get into the market in 2017, and magically they are sitting on 35 or 40% more equity than they had. And in this area, that could be anywhere between $200,000 and $500,000, right? And sometimes these are people who didn't think they could buy a house, had no idea how they were going to pay off their student loan debt, couldn't figure out a process, and so that's, I think, the other piece that we get to do with our group. We have a 5-person team, like you mentioned. Everybody here plays a specific role in the process, though. And so that means that we can really lean in on educating people that want to buy their first house, but also taking the burden of trying to come up with a game plan when you're selling a property and moving into a new home, which is a lot of chaos. It's like 400 steps. We just tell people, hand us the keys, tell us where you want to end up, tell us what you want the financial picture to look like, and we'll figure the rest out in the middle. So we kind of magically pull that thread together so people don't have to worry about it. They just need to focus on the end result that they want, and we make sure that they can get it.
Well, Nic, one of the things that I hear a lot about, right? And I really would love your commentary on this, because I think it really goes to individuals' hesitation, right, to even go out and start looking for homes, because they remember when home prices were, really crazy. Not that they're not still a bit crazy, and interest rates were really low. But I've talked to a couple of people, and I try to remind them, and I just want to see if you have found this to be true, which is that the price of a home, there is a correlation between the price of a home and the interest rates. And when I've run this evaluation for a couple of individuals, what I'm finding is that even though interest rates are up, the housing prices come down, and their payment is essentially going to be very similar. I'm not sure if you've had that experience, but I would love for you to comment on that.
Yeah, not only have we had that experience, like we've run the numbers, and that's one of the things that we do with our lending partners, is we pull the math together and illustrate that, if you're in this market a year ago and spending $100,000 over asking, which happened, right, at 2.9% interest or whatever it was that you qualified for, versus today getting into the same property, and probably the property's listed at almost the same price. The asking prices haven't come down a ton, they've come down some, but what's happening is people aren't paying way over asking, right? And that correlation is, the sale price for the house today with today's interest rates versus the sale price a year ago at an inflated price with lower interest rates, most of the time in our market is within $200 when I see those numbers.
Yeah.
It's not a huge discrepancy, but this is the thing I think that we get in the weeds on too much, right? Like, we overanalyze the market and all of these factors. And, if you're not in the know in the market, you're probably reading the headlines. And so you're getting all the doom and gloom, all the chaos, all the craziness, and the numbers don't lie. And, the fact of the matter is, for most of our clients, it's a better marketplace for them to be going in today, because they're buying a lot more equity opportunity than they were a year ago. And we want to sit down and evaluate that with people. And so many people are scared to take the next step forward, but you're not going to build wealth in this country without owning real estate in some way, shape, or form. And so we speak a lot to the longer term vision too for that purchase. Is this a 1-year purchase? Are you leaving the area in a year because you're stationed here? That's not a good time to buy. Is this a 3 to 5 year vision? It could be. What's the exit strategy? Is this a 10-year vision? In a 10-year runway, even when the market was completely in the tank, you're still going to come out just fine.
So I'm gonna reverse the car a little bit here. I know going back in time that you were at one time you were a young guy, a stud athlete at Mount Vernon High School, if my memory serves me correct. How did that young guy turn into a great real estate broker and own a great agency? What was your story into entrepreneurship?
My gosh. So, athletics breed competition. We had a great community. I think it all played together. So I'm the youngest, my mom is the youngest of 10. So you can imagine walking downtown as a basketball player. And for the people that aren't familiar with Mount Vernon basketball, it was like Hoosier-esque, right? You walk through the stands and you wouldn't know everybody, but they all be patting you on the back if you played on the team. So you're a little bit of a celebrity and you had to toe the line, and it's a community that believed that you do the right thing. And if I didn't, everybody knew I was a steward. So it was a lot of accountability. And when I grew up, I thought that I was going to be a college baseball coach. I played basketball in high school and baseball in high school, and I matriculated as a baseball player at St. Martin's. And I thought for sure that I would be a college baseball coach. And I did it for a couple of years. I enjoyed it. It didn't completely look like the path I wanted to go down in the long term. And I decided to get into the recreation field, which my dad had done. So my dad ran all the youth leagues growing up. And I thought that would be a great job for me, running youth basketball and baseball camps and that sort of stuff. I found out that my dad created that job and it didn't really exist very many places. And I was doing things like facility rentals, at-risk teen programs. So that was my way of paying it forward and giving back to the community, because that community fabric was really important to me growing up. But I wasn't really fulfilling my competitiveness. And when a friend of mine from my college baseball team asked me to get into real estate, I wasn't really sure what it had for me. I knew that I was going to be closer to home, and I knew that I was going to be able to bet on myself, and I think at the end of the day, I knew I was always going to do the work. And so for people that are interested in listening about entrepreneurship, you have to know that, right? Like when I was growing up, we had 100 kids in the gym. And the one thing that I did is I stayed there until they told me to go home. I didn't walk out of the gym. I came back the next day again and again and again and again. And, over time that paid off. I knew with this real estate endeavor that I would do that. I did not know what the work entailed. I did not have a crazy vision other than I figured if I did really well with my business, I could go back and give the community a little bit of what I wanted to give them with my previous job, and you flash forward, and I'm in a space where we get to help people every day. And that's the most intimate thing that I can help with is their home, and their financial future at times. And we can be a resource for what can be a scary process. When something breaks on a house and you don't know where to go. I remember that feeling when we bought our first house. We welcome it. We want our clients to call us because that sense of community and caring for people is so very important. But the entrepreneurship of running a business, it fills my cup up, gets me excited every day.
So Nic, I know a lot about your business. Obviously you were a guest, however many years ago it was. And I followed you and I know a lot about you. We've had a relationship where we've gotten to know a little bit more about what each of us do in our respective businesses. And I know that you do some pretty innovative things, right? I mean, you are not what I would call the prototypical, real estate broker, real estate agent, or running a real estate firm. If you were to kind of pick one thing that you've done from an innovation standpoint through COVID that has allowed you to come out the other side, because I can only imagine that this has been a pretty significant impact to a lot of individuals, what would that be?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's like such an interesting field for me to be in, because real estate is innovative and real estate is fluid and there's always a new widget, right? And one of the things that's made me successful is I don't necessarily chase the shiny object. Like if you tell me to shoot the ball 100 times every day, I shoot the ball 100 times every day. And my weakness would be pivoting off of that. So what I actually enjoyed about COVID was we were forced to embrace technology, right? Like when we met, we were in person and it was at your office previously when we were shooting, and now we're doing this on Zoom. So the flexibility of how we meet and serve people with Zoom, we used to have all of our clients come down to the office. We wanted it to be an intimate feeling and an experience at the office. And we've decided to go away from that. It's actually easier and more convenient, and people get the same information if we do a 30-minute Zoom. We still give the experience, but we're doing it in some different ways, and I think that the flexibility that was kind of forced upon us with COVID is the biggest takeaway. Like, not everything is perfect. Sometimes you just got to make it work. I still like to wear my blazer on occasion, but only for you guys. But our life is a little more casual. I think the best thing that's come out of it for us is we've kind of got permission to be a little bit more real. I really think we let go of some of the masks that we were wearing in that window and just said, okay, this is real. Sometimes it was scary. Sometimes it was challenging. Sometimes we had tragedies. And I think we all, as people, got a little bit more intimate. I think we needed that. And I'm in a relationship business, so I've appreciated taking some of the masks off and, being a little bit more real about what we need help with and figuring out how to serve people like that.
Well, what we have to do is, if you remember, we got to pay the bills, Nic Lind. So we're going to take a short break to hear from today's Spotlight sponsor. And when we come back with our guest, Nic Lind, for our Hot or Not section of the show, we're going to find out a little bit more about what Nic thinks about social media marketing. Don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. And Brad Berger, first of all, Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial Strategies, both have been sponsors ever since you left. So thank you very much for continuing to be a sponsor of the show. I want to ask you specifically, I think there's something kind of cool going on with Ideal Life 360 coming up. Would you share with our audience?
Yeah, so to probably go right against what Nic just said, right, which is the advantage of being remote. We are happy to bring back Ideal Life Day in person. So Ideal Life Day 2023 is this coming Saturday. It's at the University of Washington, Tacoma. We are going to be in person. We've got 4 fantastic speakers, well, 3 and me. So we've got Mark Pace from the Vital Lifelong Institute coming to talk about new revelations and observations on longevity and living a long, vital, impactful life. I've got Teresa Lieutenant coming to talk about kind of how our brain is wired and how we think about things. One of the prior guests from the show, Brett Clark from BC Fitness, is going to come talk about how you can be fit at any age. And then I'm going to talk about how we take the one goal that you have for 2023 and break it down into the steps that are necessary to make it a reality. So that's going to be on Saturday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Still slots available. It's free. We'll even give you a little bit of nourishment along the way. And if people are interested in signing up, we're not quite at capacity, so there's a few more slots left. It's really easy. It's ideallifeday2023.eventbrite.com. And I will point out that Eventbrite is BRITE. .com. And now look forward to having anybody who wants to come attend.
Well, Brad, thanks again. And for those of you listening, and all of a sudden it's like next week or a week later, to still go check out ideallife360.com because Brad does a lot of these cool things all the time. So Brad, we're going to send it back to the show.
You got it. Well, welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm Brad Berger, and our guest today, Nic Lind, for our next segment, Hot or Not.
Nic, Hot or Not is where Brad and I pepper you with questions about business, about life. Heck, we might even throw in some baseball. You never know. You're going to tell us whether our question is hot or not, and then why or why not. I mentioned social media marketing. We've been talking a little bit about technology. So, you have to get clients hotter in the real estate market. Hot or not, Nic, social media marketing for realtors.
Hot and not exactly why you think that it's hot. It's an extra way for me to reach the people that already trust my business. And it's a great way for people that are being referred into my business to get a sense of who we are. It's not hot as a way to go find new business for me. it is hot as a way for me to maintain relationships on another level. Whether it's our business social media page, which is a little more professional toned, right? Or my personal social media page, because I do business with a lot of friends, or a lot of people that we do business with become friends. And that helps people see me in a different light. It helps us stay in front of people. And, for the most part, it's pretty fun.
And by the way,
Nick,
Brad, before
go ahead.
you have a YouTube channel, I think, and you're doing some things. Why don't you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have a Facebook page and an Instagram page. And one thing that we've been doing is some of our longer cut content. We've been doing a weekly video. I think it's been 5 years now that we've been doing a weekly video and continuing to cultivate that. We've got some longer cut monthly market updates, which have been a huge hit. And because they're a little bit longer than the social media that we typically use, likes, they're more like 5 to 10 minute videos. We publish those on our YouTube channel. So all of our social media streams are Commencement Bay Brokers. So you can find us at Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And if you're into knowing what's going on in the market, and I highly, highly recommend that you stay in tune with what's going on in your real estate market. If you're into knowing what's going on with bigger picture trends, and specifically in the Pierce County real estate market, subscribing to that channel will keep you in the know. I typically find if you're reading headlines, you're probably 60 days behind, and that market is already gone. If you want to know what's happening now, whether or not there are deal opportunities now, whether or not the interest rates are improving now, then that's a great channel to subscribe to. And it's a huge benefit to the people that partner with us and that trust our business.
Well, Nick, you walked right into it. So I'm going to ask you the question. Give us a little bit of a preview, and that is hot or not, the real estate market in 2023.
Hotter than you think. And there are some excellent opportunities out there. The inventory in Pierce County right now is hovering around 2 months of inventory. And a balanced market is considered between 4 and 6 months in the Pacific Northwest. Now, note that I said between 4 and 6 months because the benchmark used to be 6 months. And that specifically means it would take 6 months for us to sell out of our inventory. We've moved the bar down to between 4 and 6 months because it's been a relatively hot real estate market for 12 years and we have not stacked up any inventory. Our market's driven by supply and demand. The interest rates shot way up about halfway through the year last year, really from the end of the first quarter forward. The rates got a little bit out of control. So some of the buyers were pushed out of the buyer pool, and the inventory went from about 2 weeks of inventory, which is about as low as it's ever been, probably, historic lows really inventory wise, which is why people were willing to overpay for properties. It went from 2 weeks to 2 months in about a 2 month window. But the interesting thing is the inventory is not stacked up since then. It's hovered between August and the end of the year at about 2 months of inventory, which is still a very, very low amount of inventory. And for frame of reference, it's about the same amount of inventory as we had in 2019, just pre-COVID, which was an extremely strong real estate market. So we anticipate a good year.
Can I ask a question just as a follow-on to that? So as we kind of look forward, because I know that a lot of individuals, at least I don't know if it's myth or truth, but the real estate market tends to cool down a little bit in the winter, and then people tend to get a little more jazzed up about getting their home on the market, get it ready, during the winter for a spring, reveal. How do you anticipate that impacting inventory levels in, say, April?
So that's a great question, and really the inventory has a cycle, just like the market, but there's a seasonal cycle in real estate. And in Washington, generally, that cycle looks like very, very low inventory through the holidays. So we're probably at our lowest inventory time of the year. And then between March and June, we see the most inventory hit the market, and we see fewer and fewer homes available as the year wears on through the end of the year. So we're going to see a push up in opportunities really soon. And so if you're a buyer, this is a really good time to tune in. You're also going to have more buyers coming to the market, though, because people like to move when school's out. So the question is, will that inventory sell out? And typically it does. So the bell curve kind of looks like really low right now. It goes up and peaks around June, and it starts to kind of peter out for the third and fourth quarter.
So I'm gonna switch out of real estate just for a second, a little bit more towards entrepreneurship, because I think I know the answer to this, but hot or not, networking groups.
Hot. The number one change in our business over the last 5 years, and we were making this change when we all first talked, has been moving towards doing business with people that we know, like, and trust. And when I can be in front of people and meet new people that I might align with and find out if I could know, like, and trust them, find out if I could bring something of value to that relationship, then that leads to more and better business. Absolutely hot. I think you have to be aware of how many commitments you have. Like right now, I'm a part of 2 commitments with 1 little offshoot, and that's what I can manage. I also coach kids sports. I don't do it for business. I do it because I love to help our kids, but I'm also in front of more people. So the more that you can be in front of people that you can align with, the better for your business.
So Nic, this is not exactly a baseball analogy, but I'm going to throw you a softball here, right? And that is hot or not, DIY real estate buying or selling.
Can I use a prop?
Sure.
Well, that won't work well on the audio podcast, but the YouTube channel will love it.
Yeah, well, if you're ever curious about how hard it is to sell real estate, my gosh, I got a call last Friday and we had somebody who's trying to do that. And I was happy to support them with some resources, but they were not calling the right people about the right things. You can imagine how much time that takes, but also if you are not in the know, you're probably going to struggle with understanding whether or not you're getting a fair deal. In our office, what I'm sharing is our process map.
Yep.
There's about 400 steps in our process map if you're going to do buying and selling together. Each one of these for the buyer process or the seller process has about 200 steps to it. So I would say, knowing what I know and how hard it is, there's a reason why people pay for the service.
So to that point, and I know there are real estate companies, maybe they're brokers out there that will basically buy a house from from folks who really need to sell fast and with little. And I think in terms of my daughter and son-in-law who have 4 kids, and trying to even make it clean, at any one point is difficult. And they were buying a house near us and had to leave. And so the company came in, they gave them what they ended up taking as a price. And then I think they're going to just go, I don't know if they had a buyer, they're going to flip it. But what about those situations where you have to get out fast, or you want to move fast because you've got another deal? Talk about a little bit about that.
Well, generally speaking, those types of programs, they're building in a profit margin, which is why they're doing it. And that might be okay. And we've actually had several clients who asked us to help evaluate similar situations. And I think if you're going to go down that path, you just need to understand the pros and cons. If your big picture goal is, I just need to land quickly and safely, and leaving a little money on the table is okay with me, that's fine. I also, personally, if I were evaluating that situation, I would talk to somebody that I trust, so I understand exactly how much money I'm leaving on the table and exactly, how much benefit there is for that ease of that process. A lot of times we take a look at it, it's like, well, you're leaving, 20% on the table. And if you're good with that, that's fine. I'll step out. But if you're not good with that, there's another process. It's not going to take you a lot more time and effort. It's going to look like this, and this is going to be the outcome. Which do you want? I think that too many times in my business, not my practice, but in the real estate industry, there are still predatory practices. Those companies do not have that client's end goal in mind. They have their pocketbook and their shareholders in mind. And that, to me, is why I'm in this business. It's an important process. There's a lot of money on the line, and people need to have somebody who speaks plainly to them so they understand the impact of their choices.
Well, one more question that I've got for you. Are we going to break?
Well, I'm going to let you slide in under the tag. We're up against the break, but go ahead and ask your question.
Well, I guess the question that I have is, and we may have already answered that, but it's kind of an offshoot of what Dan just asked. And that is, hot or not, these companies that buy and flip properties. So it's not the person who needs to exit a property and move on, but they're just kind of buying and flipping properties.
So is it hot to have a company
Hot or not? Yeah.
to have a company that buys and flips properties, or to work
Yes.
with them? So, real estate investing is, like all investing, a little bit of a gamble, a calculated risk. And so if you're running a company that buys and flips properties, eventually you're probably going to get caught up in a shifting market. And that happened this year. That was not fun for people that were leveraged and had multiple properties or projects that they needed to finish. And that created some deal opportunities. And I think for people that want to get into the flip game, it is more work than they expect. HGTV makes everything look really, really easy. It's basically taking that crazy process I shared with you and then doing a construction project on top of it. And also, oh, by the way, making sure it all gets done on time, in time for you to make money.
So Nick, what you're telling me is most remodel and construction projects are not done in 30 to 60 minutes.
Or days.
Well, and our podcast isn't built in a day. I guess I didn't use it very good. That was a terrible segue. Here's what we have to do, Nick. We have to take our second break to hear from our fantastic corporate sponsors. When we come back with Nick for our Plead the Fifth section of the show, we are going to talk about double vision. You're not going to want to miss that, so don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Shrimp Tank. And Plead the Fifth is brought to you by our wonderful corporate sponsors, Ideal Life 360, Cornerstone Financial, First Underwriters Insurance, BC Fitness Studio, and Upstart Group. Please visit www.shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle to learn more about these terrific companies. Now back to the show.
So welcome back to the Shrimp Tank, where we interview the best and brightest CEOs and business thought leaders in the greater Puget Sound area and beyond. I'm co-host Brad Berger, and our guest today is Nic Lind. So for our next segment, Plead the Fifth.
And we're going to turn up the heat on you. I don't know if you're a fair catch. I don't see you as a person who's going to fair catch much, but and plead the fifth. But what the heck? We're going to throw some big ones at you. And I mentioned double vision. You probably have no idea what I'm going to bring up, but this is kind of a unique group we have here. Brad is the father of twins. Nic is the father of twins, and I am a grandfather of twins, which is I think that might be the first in podcast history ever. I don't know, but that could be a first. So plead the fifth, Nic. What is the most challenging, difficult thing you had to maneuver, activity with twins at that moment? What was the most challenging thing for you?
Getting them in the car. Car seats. I saw a little video spoof with a dad trying to move the car seat the other day. It was like, yeah, multiply that by twins. And you only have one set of car seats. So you got to take the base in and out, and you're dressed like in your work clothes, and you're just trying to hustle out the door. No matter what you do, it takes 20 minutes. And for whatever reason, it's always 100 degrees in the car. That's how it goes when you're moving the twins' car seats in and out. We're so fortunate that twins can buckle themselves now. This is a great stage of life. They can get dressed, they can buckle themselves. Life is good.
So Nic, you know I've got a lot of respect for you, and we're going to have a lot of fun during this segment. And so it's a good opportunity to give you, an opportunity to plead the fifth or to defend yourself. I'm not sure really what this is going to be, but a lot of people, kibitz and complain about what it costs to sell a home, right? And it's 5 or 6% or whatever it is that gets charged to sell a home. So the question is there really that big of a difference selling a $500,000 home than selling a $5 million home? And do you deserve to have the same commission?
That's a great question. I would say it depends, and I would say the more substantial the sale price, the more is on the line, and the more motivated we are to help out. I think what people don't see, I know what people don't see, is the expenses that we incur, like any business owner. It's not just a sign that goes up for $100. It costs us over $5,000 every time we help somebody sell a house. So when you say yes to me and sign a listing agreement, we go out and put a sign in the ground. If it doesn't sell, I'm out $5,000. I would say if I can't bring enough value to justify what I get compensated, then I'll be the first one to tell people. That's the way that we've chosen to operate. There are times when you are looking at two very, very similar properties and it's an easy evaluation, there's an ease of process. Maybe a buyer already wants to buy it and pay top dollar for that house, and it's the best deal they're going to get anyways, without me involved. I'm happy to tell them that. That's fine. But I think the law of compensation says that that goodwill comes back to me at some point too.
So Nic, I'm gonna really turn up the heat on this one. This one I hope will be a little bit of fun. I got it before you came on. I got a chance to say hello to your lovely and talented wife, Emily. Now, if Emily was sitting here, or maybe just standing behind you, which she's not, but if she was standing behind you, and I asked her, what is one thing Nic can do better in running the business and at home? Could be two different things, but one for each. What would she say right now?
Well, she'd take a while because it's a pretty long list.
But if she chose one, what would it be?
You know, so many times our strengths are our Achilles heel, and my ability to stick with it creates conflict at times, both in my business and in my home. And when I am more flexible and I smile more and I don't worry about being perfect, everything is a lot better. So I think it is stopping that incessant need to be perfect that we have, especially if we're like athletes or driven people, you know, and just moving on and going with the flow a little bit.
Love it. Love it.
Well, Nic, the thing that I really admire about you, and I know about you from, kind of our early introductions, is, and as a coach, this is a bit self-serving, but I know that you really embrace that process. So my plead the fifth question for you is, who in your life has been most influential in your career journey?
Oh my gosh. That's a pretty good list too, and I think that maybe what in my life can I say that without pleading the fifth? I was introduced to personal development and books on personal development. I was introduced to principles by my dad. I was through sports and the way that he coached. We did a lot of visualization, a lot of positive thought, reflection, a lot of affirmative talk when we were playing sports growing up. And for that window, think about growing up in the 80s and playing in the 90s, that was a little ahead of its time. That was a great introduction. And my father-in-law, Stu, he introduced me to some of these great books like Think and Grow Rich. And that's when it clicked on why those things worked. Like when you're young, you do the practice. When you're older, you learn about why the practice works. And then at some point you put it all together a little bit better. And, those two started me on a path that helped me reframe how I'm looking at the world. And so, because of that work on development, I try to take something positive, even out of a negative situation. And sometimes I'm not as good at it as I want to be, but most of the time we are. And that's how you continue to improve and staying stuck instead of staying stuck in one spot. So, those two got me on the path. And then I would say probably the best coach I ever played for was Coach Frazier at Mount Vernon. And he practiced the same thing. I'll never forget. If you can't see me if this is being broadcast, I'm 5'10", and I was a starting guard on a basketball team. You can play at 5'10" in high school, even if you can't dunk. It's okay. But he asked me what I wanted to do after my senior year. And I told him that I was going to go play baseball at the University of Indiana. And I was going to walk onto the basketball team. And he looked at me and he said, well, you got the jumper for it. It's those types of positive affirmations that keep people moving forward. And those three guys really did a great job of that for me.
So I have one question before I can't believe how fast time goes, Nic. This is one of the questions I really enjoy asking people about their industry. So I'm going to ask you because I'm really interested to know. What is it that you like most and what is it that you like least about the real estate industry as we sit here today in January of 2023?
What I like most is the relationship. And I had no idea how much impact that we can have on people. The first home I ever sold went under now this is serendipity, so I hesitate to share it. The first home I ever sold went under contract the day that I got my license. And that's never happened again. So don't think that's going to happen. 700 sales later or whatever. The power of that, though, was not that I got lucky and lucked into one. I think that was a little wink that I might be on the right path. When I went and met the family and the husband came up and gave me a high five and the wife ran over and gave me a hug because they got their dream home under contract. It was their dream home. It was a beautiful house. I mean, that was humbling to know that I'm a part of that process. And we have those moments with most of our clients. It might be a moment where 5 years later, they're able to pay off their student loan debt and move on to their dream neighborhood. But those are the most special moments. I love that the most. What I don't like the most, or I guess what I least like, is probably the schedule. And too often brokerages don't tell people exactly what to expect when they're signing up for this real estate life. If you're not setting good bumpers, people will try to contact you literally 24 hours a day. You don't have to work like that, but there are times when you've got to work well outside of the normal working hours to get something done. And that's just part of what you sign up for with this business. Having a family and juggling that's the biggest challenge I have.
Well, Nic, thank you so much for being a guest here on the Shrimp Tank again. And for our listeners that want to get in touch with you or learn more about Commencement Bay Brokers, how do they get more information?
Yeah, well, if you're in Tacoma and you're visiting Proctor, we're at 26th and Alder, so just walk on in and say hi. But if you want to find us online, it's commencementbaybrokers.com. And a great way to connect with us is on our social media feeds, whether you're a Facebook user, Instagram, or YouTuber. Seek out Commencement Bay Brokers and we'll pop right up. And that's a great way to connect with us and learn more about how we take care of people.
All right. Well, for all of our listeners, make sure you check out all of the replays on shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle and wherever you get your podcast. We've already named a few of those: iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher. Please follow us on our show's social media pages on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Well, Nic, first of all, I echo what Brad said. Thanks for being back. We're going to have you on a third time. I know at some point we'll have you on, maybe just giving a state of the market or something. We always love learning more about you and your business and your family. Thanks for joining us. Brad, my good friend, when he said old home week, I was thinking, well, maybe he thinks Brad's in an old home, but he's not. He's alive and kicking and living to past 100. I know he's going to do that, but Brad, it's great to see you again. Thanks as always. Everybody do exactly what Brad said and like us on our Facebook page, because that's where you can live stream us every single week. Our next show will be Wednesday, January 25th. And our guests will be Rufina and Roger Holcomb with Dental Professionals Staffing Service. Michelle Baumberger will be my co-host. In the meantime, be safe, be well, and be prosperous, because until next week, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.